All right, 2 days ago, July the 11th, 2026, a brand new law took effect in this country. And I will be straight with you, the vast majority of people have absolutely no clue it even happened. Now, typically when a significant housing law gets passed, you catch wind of it through the news, the headlines cover the mortgage rate developments, the builder industry stuff, the things that matter to financial markets, and the portions that genuinely affect everyday people, particularly older Americans. Those sections get buried underneath everything else or skipped over completely. Not today, because tucked inside this new law are several things that I genuinely believe could change your circumstances in a meaningful way. I am talking about funding for home repairs, the kind you never have to repay, fresh options if you are looking to downsize and cannot locate the right place, stronger safeguards if you are currently renting. Support for people living in rural areas where there is a serious housing shortage at this very moment, new pathways toward affordable mortgages, and something that is going to matter tremendously to your children and grandchildren when the time comes for them to purchase a home. 6 things total, and I'm going to walk you through every single one in straightforward, everyday language. No complicated terminology, no confusion whatsoever. Here is the part that really gets to me though. Surveys reveal that 75% of adults aged 50 and older say they want to remain in their current home as they get older. 75%. And yet, millions of those very same people are stuck because their home needs repairs they simply cannot afford, or because there is nowhere suitable to downsize to, or because the rent keeps climbing while the Social Security payment does not climb along with it. This legislation was designed with exactly those people in mind, people like you and people you care about deeply. So stay right here with me because the most critical portions of this conversation are still ahead and you genuinely do not want to miss them. Let me begin with the foundation because you deserve to know precisely what we are discussing. The bill is identified as H.R. 6644. Its official title is the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. It became law on July the 11th, just 2 days ago. President Trump declined to sign it due to a political disagreement with Congress. But that ultimately did not matter because this bill passed with such an overwhelming margin that it became law regardless. How overwhelming exactly? In the Senate, it passed 85-5. In the House, it passed 358-32. You would struggle to find a bipartisan piece of legislation in recent years that carried that level of support. Nearly nobody in Congress voted in opposition because the problem it aims to solve, the housing crisis, is so apparent and so severe that arguing against it was nearly impossible to defend. Here is the scale of the challenge this bill is attempting to tackle. The White House's own economic advisors estimate that the nation faces a shortage of roughly 10 million homes. 10 million. That is precisely why prices have gone through the roof. That is why renting has become so expensive. That is why first-time buyers cannot break into the market. And it is why seniors who hope to sell a larger home and move into something smaller cannot find anything worth moving into. And here is a figure I want you to hold on to. More than 12.4 million households led by someone age 65 or older, representing 34% of all older households, spend more than 30% of their income on housing. Housing professionals describe that as being cost-burdened. 1/3 of all older American households are cost-burdened at this very moment. That is the population this bill was written to serve. Now, here is something I want you to understand before we get into the specifics. And this genuinely caught me off guard when I read through the complete text of this legislation. There are elements of this bill that I do not believe are receiving nearly enough attention. And one of them, coming up in just a moment, is going to be especially relevant to you if you are a homeowner. But first, let us discuss the piece that I believe will matter most for seniors who simply want to remain exactly where they are. Here is something I find genuinely exciting, and I want to explain my reasoning. One of the central provisions within this new law is what is being referred to as the Whole Home Repairs Pilot Program. This is a federally funded initiative designed to help lower-income homeowners, with a particular focus on seniors, afford the kinds of repairs that allow them to continue living safely in their own homes. What types of repairs are we talking about? Let me be specific because the details genuinely matter here. We are discussing grab bars installed in the bathroom, ramps built where steps used to be, wider doorways to accommodate wheelchairs or walkers, weatherization improvements such as insulation and ceiling drafts that help bring down energy bills, elimination of health hazards including lead paint or mold, and substantial structural work covering roofing, electrical systems, and heating. The kinds of things that, if left unattended, turn into full-blown emergencies. These are not decorative upgrades. These are the repairs that represent the difference between someone being able to live safely inside their own home and someone ending up in a hospital or care facility well before they are ready. Now, the program is structured as a grant, meaning money you are never required to pay back for homeowners who qualify. It targets low-income households, and eligibility will be determined by income thresholds connected to the median income level in your particular area. The program is currently being rolled out, so certain specific dollar figures and application procedures are still being finalized at the state and local level. But here is the broader point that matters. The federal government is committing genuine funding to the idea that seniors who want to age in place deserve the resources to do so in a safe environment. This is not a vague or empty promise. This is funded, it is law, and it is actively happening. 75% of older adults say they want to remain at home as they age. This program represents one of the most direct responses to that wish that I have ever seen included in a major housing bill. And here is what I want you to do starting today. Begin watching for announcements from your local area agency on aging and your state housing finance agency. These are the organizations that will be administering these programs at the local level, and they will be the first to announce when applications open up and what it takes to qualify. Now, suppose you have given it serious thought and you actually do not wish to stay in your current home. You want to find something smaller. Perhaps your children have grown and moved away. Perhaps you no longer need 4 bedrooms. Perhaps you simply want something more compact and far easier to keep up with. If that describes you, the next portion of this bill is going to feel like somebody finally paid attention. One of the most frequent frustrations I hear, and I hear this quite regularly, sounds like this. I want to move somewhere smaller. I want something more manageable. But there is simply nothing out there. And that is not an exaggeration by any stretch. In most areas across this country, the housing supply for smaller, more affordable homes is extremely thin. There are not nearly enough of them available, and there are a handful of specific reasons behind that reality, which this bill actually works to address directly. The law encourages construction of accessory dwelling units, those smaller secondary units that can be added to an existing property, sometimes called in-law suites or backyard cottages. It encourages the development of duplexes, townhouses, and the conversion of vacant buildings into livable housing. And here is a significant one. It modernizes and expands support for manufactured homes and modular homes. Let me spend a moment on that last point because I believe it is widely underappreciated. Manufactured homes, what many people still refer to as mobile homes, have transformed dramatically over the past couple of decades. Modern manufactured and modular homes are high quality, energy efficient, and considerably more affordable than traditionally constructed homes built on site. They have historically been underfinanced because lenders treated them under a different set of rules, and they have faced unnecessary zoning restrictions in numerous communities. This bill changes that reality. It modernizes the financing framework for manufactured homes, raises loan limits, supports manufactured home communities with repair and preservation funding, and works to dismantle the barriers that have prevented this affordable housing option from being more broadly accessible, particularly in rural communities where the housing shortage is actually most severe and where manufactured homes make the most practical and logical sense. And here is the additional piece worth noting. Empty commercial and industrial properties are going to be converted into housing through a newly created pilot program. Think about the vacant office buildings you pass while driving, the abandoned shopping centers, the shuttered factories sitting idle. There are millions of square feet of empty space throughout this country. And this bill is going to help communities transform some of that space into homes, including homes that are genuinely affordable. What does all of this mean for someone hoping to downsize? It means that over the coming years, you should begin seeing more options become available, greater variety in what is on the market, more price points to choose from, and more choices in communities where you actually want to live. Will this happen overnight? Absolutely not. But the direction is unmistakably clear and the funding is in place. Now, speaking of resources, I want to tell you about something contained in this bill that is going to matter significantly for people who are renting, and there is one particular element that I believe is long past due. Here is a reality that does not receive nearly enough attention. A substantial number of seniors rent, and renting on a fixed income in today's market is genuinely challenging. Rents have surged in nearly every region of the country, and the people hit hardest by that increase are individuals on fixed incomes, people whose monthly Social Security payment stays more or less the same while their rent climbs by $200 per year. That gap accumulates very quickly. This bill does 3 specific things for renters that I want to walk you through carefully. Number 1, it expands the Housing Choice Voucher Program, what most people recognize as Section 8, by raising the rental assistance demonstration cap by 100,000 units. That translates to more federally assisted units becoming available, more people gaining access to vouchers, and the bill also includes language designed to make participation easier for landlords and property owners. That final piece matters considerably because one of the reasons the voucher program has been so frustrating is that many landlords refuse to accept them. The new law works to remove those obstacles so that seniors holding vouchers actually have real places where they can use them. Number 2, the bill focuses specifically on preserving existing public and rural rental housing, the affordable units already in existence, but at serious risk of being converted to market rate pricing or being sold off. Losing affordable units is every bit as damaging as failing to build new ones, and this bill clearly acknowledges that. Number 3, and this is the one I really want you to pay close attention to, the bill establishes a formal complaint resource for tenants living in properties owned by large corporate landlords. Here is precisely why this matters. In recent years, massive investment firms have acquired tens of thousands of rental units across the country. And when a giant corporation owns your apartment building and something goes wrong, your heat stops working, your lease terms are not being honored, they are attempting to raise your rent in ways that do not feel legitimate, you do not have many places to turn for help, they have entire legal teams at their disposal, you have a handwritten letter composed at your kitchen table. This complaint resource gives renters somewhere meaningful to turn, a federal mechanism for documenting and escalating disputes involving large corporate landlords. It is not a complete solution to every problem, but it is something that did not exist before today. And it recognizes that the imbalance of power between a billion-dollar landlord and a 70-year-old retiree living on a fixed income is a genuine problem that deserves to be taken seriously. Now, here is where I want to shift direction because up to this point, we have been discussing what this bill does for people who are staying put or renting. But there is something within this legislation that matters enormously for people who have owned their home for a significant period of time. And it is also going to matter deeply for your children and grandchildren. And I believe it may genuinely surprise you. All right, this one addresses something that has been generating real frustration among a great many people for quite some time, and this bill takes a direct shot at it. You have likely heard or personally noticed that major corporations, investment firms, and Wall Street money have been purchasing single-family homes in massive quantities, not with any intention of living in them, but to rent them out, to control available housing inventory, and to drive prices upward. And the strategy has worked effectively. One of the primary reasons home prices have been rising so rapidly is not simply the shortage of new construction. It is that a substantial share of available homes are being snatched up by institutional investors before ordinary buyers ever get an opportunity. Here is what this bill does to address that specific problem. Any company or investment group that controls at least 350 single-family homes will generally be prohibited from purchasing additional existing homes, and that restriction takes effect 180 days after the law went into effect. So we are looking at approximately January of 2027 before you see full enforcement in place. Now, I want to be candid about something here, and this is where I will offer you my honest assessment. There are ways to work around this restriction. A group of 10 wealthy investors who previously pooled their capital together to purchase homes could theoretically split apart and each independently buy up to 350 homes. Congress is aware of this possibility, and if they begin observing people exploiting that loophole, I fully expect them to return with something considerably tighter. Also worth noting, corporations are not being required to sell the homes they currently own. The law restricts future purchases, not existing holdings, so the impact is going to be felt gradually over time. But here is my honest view on the long-term effect. If institutional buyers are pulled back from the marketplace, more existing homes become accessible to individual buyers. People like your children, your grandchildren, and first-time buyers who have been told repeatedly that they keep getting outbid by all cash offers from companies they have never heard of. That experience has been profoundly discouraging for an entire generation of potential homeowners. This law is genuinely attempting to shift that dynamic. And there is one additional piece connected to homeownership that I want to bring up because it is quite clever and far too few people are aware of it. The bill includes a pilot program for small dollar mortgages, specifically loans of $100,000 or less, which may incorporate assistance with down payments, closing costs, property appraisals, and title insurance. This sounds modest at first glance, but consider carefully who it actually helps. Seniors hoping to purchase an affordable, modest home in a smaller community, or someone who simply needs a relatively small loan to bridge a financial gap. Lenders have historically steered clear of these smaller mortgages because the profit margins are insufficient to make them worthwhile. This pilot program is specifically designed to correct that problem. There is one more substantial area this bill addresses, and it is the one that will matter most for people living outside of major cities. I want to make absolutely certain you hear this part clearly. If you reside in a rural area, a small town, or even a suburb that has not seen much new development, this section is speaking directly to you. One of the central objectives of this law is to cut through the bureaucratic barriers that make it so difficult to build new homes. That translates to two primary things. First, zoning reform. HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, is now required to publish guidelines and best practices to assist states and local governments in modernizing their zoning regulations. What does that mean in plain, everyday language? Numerous communities have outdated rules on the books that make it illegal to construct anything other than a large single-family home on a particular lot. No duplexes permitted, no townhouses, no compact apartments. Those regulations made sense during a different period in history. They make very little sense today when the country faces a shortage of 10 million homes. This law encourages communities to revise those rules so that builders can construct more housing more rapidly in more locations. Second, faster approval processes. The law streamlines certain federal environmental review requirements for infill development, meaning construction on land already located within developed areas, and for federally supported housing projects. Approvals that previously consumed years can now move along much more quickly. That directly lowers construction expenses, which eventually translates into more affordable homes for both buyers and renters alike. And then there is the manufactured and modular housing element I touched on earlier, which is especially vital for rural communities. In many rural areas, there is almost nothing available for purchase. There is no apartment complex under construction. There is no new housing development being built, but there is land available, and there are manufactured homes that can be placed on that land at a genuinely affordable cost. This bill eliminates many of the financing and regulatory obstacles that have been holding that option back for far too long. The bottom line regarding all of this zoning and construction reform is that it is not something you are going to feel the impact of next week. These changes operate over a longer timeline, but the direction is unmistakably pointed toward more housing in more locations at more accessible price points. And that ultimately means reduced pressure across the entire market, including for seniors. Now let me bring everything together for you because I want to make certain you are leaving this video with a clear and complete picture. Here is what the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, H.R. 6644, which became law on July 11, 2026, does for older Americans. Let me lay it out cleanly. 1. Home repairs that allow aging in place safely. The Whole Home Repairs Pilot delivers grant funding for items like grab bars, ramps, wider doorways, weatherization improvements, and major structural repairs. The objective is to help low-income seniors remain safely in their homes. Watch your local area agency on aging for details on how to apply. 2. Expanded downsizing options. The law promotes construction of accessory dwelling units, duplexes, townhouses, manufactured homes, and conversion of vacant commercial properties into housing. Over time, more choices at more price points will become available. 3. Stronger rental support. The Housing Choice Voucher Program is expanded by 100,000 units. Existing affordable rental housing is being protected and preserved, and a brand new complaint resource for tenants of large corporate landlords is now officially in place. 4. Protecting rural communities. Manufactured and modular housing receives stronger financing support and regulatory backing, directly benefiting rural areas where the housing shortage is most deeply felt. 5. Stopping Wall Street from purchasing your neighborhood. Companies controlling 350 or more single-family homes face purchasing restrictions beginning 180 days from now. This creates more available homes for individual buyers, including your children and grandchildren. 6. Eliminating unnecessary red tape. Zoning guidelines, faster approval timelines, small dollar mortgage pilot programs, all laying the foundation for more homes being built more quickly for the people who genuinely need them. Now, here is what I want to leave you with, and I mean this sincerely. This bill is not without its flaws. I have said it before, and I will say it again. The 180-day window before the Wall Street purchasing restrictions take full effect is genuinely frustrating. The potential ways that wealthy investors might maneuver around the 350 home threshold are legitimate concerns worth watching closely. Programs like the Whole Home Repairs Pilot still require implementation at the local level, and that process takes time. But here is what is equally true. This is the most serious, most substantive, most bipartisan housing legislation this country has enacted in a very long time. 85-5 in the Senate, 358-32 in the House. This is not even remotely a close outcome. The representatives we sent to Washington examined the housing crisis, considered what it is doing to seniors, to renters, to first-time buyers, and to rural communities, and they reached an agreement that almost never happens in today's political climate. And what they agreed upon is that something needed to fundamentally change for you and for people who share your circumstances. These provisions only benefit the people who are actually aware they exist. So if this video was valuable to you, please share it with others. Send it along to someone who has been quietly struggling with a home repair they cannot afford, or a family member who has grown frustrated trying to locate a smaller place to live, or a grandchild who has been priced entirely out of purchasing their first home. That is the single most meaningful action you can take right now. Drop your questions down in the comments section below. I read every single one, and your questions directly shape what the next video covers. So if you would like me to go deeper on any particular provision, the manufactured housing component, the voucher program, what small dollar mortgages actually look like when put into practice, let me know and I will create that video. If you found value in this one, go ahead and like it, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell so you do not miss whatever comes next.